Nah, we're doing it one more time. This always upsets everybody, and I totally understand it. It's something that we don't need to make a video about, and I always get that comment too, like, oh, you didn't need to make this video. Like, why are you talking about this? Just because somebody mentions it doesn't mean you have to mention it too. And I say, yeah, well, it's kind of my show, and the format of this has always been just kind of stuff that I like to talk about, and I've never tried to pretend that this is anything more than that, you know? I just happen to like talking about hockey pretty much every day. So anytime something happens, news, rumors, prospects, trades, updates, whatever, we always seem to talk about it because the format of this show started out as what I would usually be greeted with every day in high school. In grade 12, heading into the library and talking with the same group of guys about the same sport. Every single day I was like, hey, like, you saw that article? Oh, they're talking about this guy. Oh, could the Canucks use that guy? Oh, that's interesting. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to bring that to the internet. So that's what we're doing here. I know a lot of people will be upset by this video being made, but just wanted to let you into some insight as to how I'm feeling about everything. Because when it comes to the latest on Donnie and Dolly, they had themselves a segment yesterday which featured Pittsburgh Penguins beat writer Josh Yohei. He does stuff for The Athletic in Pittsburgh, and he was on Donnie and Dolly yesterday on the 27th, and I'll leave a link in the description to two things. First, it's the video wherein he actually makes an appearance, and secondly, it is the quote. The article that has the quote here, take a look at this. If I am Sidney Crosby, and I do want to be traded someday, Vancouver would probably be my top choice, or right up there. Josh Yohei isn't convinced that Sidney Crosby is going to be traded out of Pittsburgh one day, but if he was, could it be to Vancouver? Here's the full quote. If I am Sidney Crosby, and I do want to be traded someday, Vancouver would probably be my top choice, or right up there. I do know that Crosby loves Tocchet and he loves Rutherford. I know he likes Patrik Allvin, and there are a lot of former Penguins on that roster. So yeah, it all makes sense to me. I just think it's unlikely to happen. He's a creature of habit, and he's incredibly comfortable here in Pittsburgh. So, calm your horses, Canucks fans. We're not saying it's going to happen, but the insider that covers the Penguins the most for The Athletic went out there and said, yeah, I wouldn't really be surprised if it did happen. I think it's not going to, but if there was going to be any destination out there, this would be the one. So, for Pittsburgh to potentially think of any sort of a Sid the Kid transaction, Vancouver, hey, you gotta start thinking about what they could provide this guy. Obviously, if you go to the former Penguins, they actually have diminished over the years. There are still former Penguins there, like Teddy Bluger, Tocchet, Allvin, Rutherford, etc., but there are some guys that ended up leaving, like the Casey DeSmiths of the world. Mark Friedman is still there, I guess. Yeah, he got called up today, by the way, because of the Philip Hronek injury. But there are still some guys that are from the Pittsburgh organization in the past and are now in Vancouver. Could Sid the Kid be one of these guys? Well, who really knows? There's an opportunity for him to put his name in Stanley Cup contention once again if he comes over to Vancouver versus staying around in Pittsburgh. But I think Yohei does make a really great point that this guy is an animal. He is a creature of habit. He always seems to do what he seems to do, and there isn't really, like, a divergence from Sidney Crosby and his personality in that respect. He always seems to be following his own heart, following what he's used to. That's why he got $8.7 million a year once again. The guy just decides, yeah, I'm not gonna diverge from what it is that I'm used to. I'm always gonna keep on getting it in Pittsburgh, in this organization, in finances. He doesn't want any other money compared to 8.7. So Sidney Crosby, unless there's a really big desire to change, unless this season is just so astronomically bad for Pittsburgh, which I don't want to say it's like been that bad, but it has been a lot worse than a lot of people were expecting. I mean, the Pens right now go over to the Metro standings. They're literally last. The only team worse than them in the Eastern Conference is Montreal. Okay, maybe it is actually that bad. Maybe they're playing just as badly as it's seeming when you talk about how much of a disaster it's been. But if this continues, and if Sid is like, okay, sorry, I signed the extension, I'm okay with staying here, but wow, is it not nice to not win. maybe it will be nice to win sometimes. If that is the case, then, okay, we could see maybe Sidney Crosby waiving that no-move protection, having himself some sort of an opportunity to go elsewhere. We said this a few videos ago, but, like, I think if there's anybody in the league that has deserved to right to determine what it is that he wants, if there's anybody whose overall status and his accomplishments and his reputation, if anybody out there exists in the league where he can pretty much say, oh yeah, sorry, I want to leave, and then he leaves, and nobody's going to be upset with it, it's Sidney Crosby. This is the guy, the face of the franchise, the face of the league, the face of a generation, pretty much. So if he were to decide, yeah, sorry, I kind of want to go back to my old Pittsburgh guys in Vancouver, they've got a better team. They've got a lot of talent up front. Sure, it might not be the easiest for Sidney Crosby to break onto that center core. I mean, what am I saying? It's Sidney Crosby. He would probably overtake Miller and Pettersson in ice time. But if you wanted to move one of these guys to the wing, that'd be good too. I mean, I don't think it'd be ideal to have one of Petey, Miller, or Sid as a third-line center. That was the entire conundrum when Bo Horvat was here in Vancouver, and kind of the same thing with Elias Lindholm. You wouldn't necessarily want that, but if you were to put, let's say, Crosby as the top-line C and you have Pettersson as the right wing, or you put Miller and Crosby on the same line, that sounds like a really interesting idea. Does winger Crosby make sense? The guy is such a beast when he goes into the boards and wins battles anyway that maybe he could be suited as a winger. Who really knows? I get that Sidney Crosby has played center his whole life, and a lot of his value comes with what he brings down the middle, but hey, there are options here. Rick Tocchet's had him before. He knows what it's like to coach this dude, so ultimately, there is enough of a connection and enough of a burning thought there that I wanted to go out there and make this video. Even though Josh Yohei says it's probably not going to happen, even though one of the main Pittsburgh beat writers says that he doesn't think Sid's getting traded, he does say, if Sid does get traded, if he does find himself on the move, Vancouver could be a destination. And if it's a full $8.7 million contract, I would imagine the Canucks would have to give up, let's say, I don't know, throw in Vinny Desharnais or a Tyler Myers and maybe throw in another roster player the opposite way to balance out the player numbers. I don't think it's going to be like a Miller or somebody. Like, they're not going to get that, right? Canucks would have to mark as their future. I'd say maybe like Lekkerimäki, Willander, 2 firsts, and then maybe something else. Like, it's crazy how much it would take to get Sidney Crosby. Who knows if that would even be worth it? Like, it's a total shot of adrenaline with no real long-term planning behind it, but it's still an idea that I think would be interesting enough to talk about, which is why we did it here in this video. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Sidney Crosby potentially coming over to Vancouver. What do you think about this idea? What do you think about how the Canucks could navigate this situation, and whether or not you think this actually would be an interesting thing for Patrick Allvin to explore? Let me know. Is it real? Is it not? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.